Nobody expected this. Not the media, not the league, not even the fans who followed every second of Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise from college legend to professional phenomenon. One swing, that's all it took. One clip, one perfect motion of power, grace, and precision that cracked across the fairway like thunder. It wasn't just a golf shot. It was a cultural explosion. The kind of moment that stops timelines, melts comment sections, and makes even the doubters whisper, "Wait, she did what?" Caitlin Clark didn't just walk onto a golf course, she stormed into a world that had never seen anything like her. The same world that once told her to stay in her lane just watched her redefine what a lane even is. The cameras didn't blink. The internet didn't breathe. And the WNBA, the very league that once claimed her as its brightest light, suddenly looked dim by comparison. Because when Caitlin Clark teed off at Michael Jordan's private golf course, it wasn't just a swing, it was a statement. No coach, no PR setup, no league logo behind her. Just Caitlin, pure athletic will, and that quiet confidence that says, "Watch me." The clip went viral within minutes. SportsCenter looped it like it was a championship highlight. Golf Digest, Bleacher Report, ESPN, Barstool, you name it, they all posted her swing. Millions of views in hours. Fans who had never watched a WNBA game were now replaying Caitlin Clark's form like analysts breaking down Tiger Woods. And yet, what made it even wilder wasn't the shot itself. It was the response. Because while the golf world opened its arms to her, something else was happening behind closed doors. Silence. Deafening silence from the WNBA, the same league that built its summer campaigns around her name, suddenly had nothing to say. No tweet, no repost, no celebration. And that silence spoke louder than anything. For years, the WNBA has fought for attention, for sponsors, airtime, and mainstream respect. Then comes Caitlin Clark, and with a single golf swing, she does what entire marketing teams couldn't do in a decade. Make women's sports trend globally. That's not luck. That's power. And power makes people nervous. Because this wasn't just about basketball anymore. This was about control. Caitlin Clark wasn't supposed to own the spotlight. She was supposed to share it. But when the internet anoints you, there's no sharing. Overnight, Caitlin Clark wasn't just a WNBA star. She was a brand beyond borders. A movement wearing spikes instead of sneakers. You could feel the tremors ripple across the sports world. Golf pros reposted her clip with heart emojis. LPGA legends mentioned her by name. Even Tiger Woods' camp was rumored to have noticed. Imagine that. A WNBA rookie catching the eye of golf's greatest competitor. That's not crossover energy, that's global appeal. And every second that clip trended, the WNBA's leadership must have felt the walls closing in. Because the conversation online wasn't about the next game or rookie stats anymore. It was about Caitlin Clark outgrowing the league before her first contract even matured. Think about that. The same athlete they marketed as the savior might now be their biggest wake-up call. While fans cheered her for breaking boundaries, inside the league offices, things got tense. You could almost picture the scene, executives staring at screens, watching engagement charts spike for golf posts while their own league's pages sat quiet. Brand managers who once courted WNBA teams now calling to ask if Caitlin would do a golf collab. The shift was immediate. Sponsors that had spent years negotiating for a logo patch on jerseys suddenly saw more value in a single Caitlin Clark tee shot. One clip, one moment. One athlete reminding everyone that talent doesn't belong to any league. It belongs to whoever respects it most. And that's where the real story begins. Because behind every viral moment is an invisible current. Politics, pride, power. The WNBA's silence wasn't random. It was calculated. They'd spent an entire season walking a tightrope between celebrating Caitlin and controlling her narrative. Too much praise and the rest of the league felt overshadowed. Too little and fans accused them of bias. But this golf clip destroyed that balance. It exposed what fans had been feeling all along, that Caitlin Clark didn't need permission to shine. She just needed space. That clip didn't just go viral, it broke the algorithm. Overnight, hashtags like Caitlin Claire Golf, Queen of Every Court, and Clark Facts started trending higher than WNBA finals. YouTube channels analyzed her swing. Golf instructors broke it down frame by frame. One even said her follow-through looks like she's been playing for years. But what made it electric was the symbolism. Every motion of that club felt like a metaphor for her journey, smooth, fearless, perfectly aimed despite the noise. The same girl who was called too confident on the basketball court was now being praised for that same confidence on the golf course. The irony couldn't be sharper. Fans noticed that they always do. Comment sections lit up with comparisons. Golf celebrates her. Basketball resents her. The LPGA is welcoming her like a queen, while the WNBA barely claps. That's when it hit. This wasn't just about sports anymore. It was about respect. About how one league saw her as a headline, while another saw her as a threat. The golf world didn't care about controversies or rivalries. They cared about excellence. And Caitlin Clark, whether she's holding a basketball or a golf club, is excellence in motion. But here's the part that stung for the WNBA. Every golf fan that discovered Caitlin through that clip wasn't just becoming a new follower. They were becoming witnesses to how another industry treated her better. It's like watching someone finally walk into the room they were meant to be in. Polite applause replaced online hate. Smiles replaced side eyes. Where the WNBA spent weeks debating her fouls, golf simply said, "Welcome." That kind of reception changes an athlete. It changes perception. It changes power. And deep down, the WNBA knew it. Because every time a highlight of Caitlin at the Pro-Am replayed, the league's narrative slipped further out of its hands. Remember, this is a player who built record-breaking viewership, who filled arenas that hadn't sold out in years, who turned rookie games into prime-time events. Yet the moment she stepped into golf, the energy shifted from rookie to royalty. It wasn't that basketball wasn't enough, it's that Caitlin Clark had transcended it. Her Pro-Am outing was supposed to be fun, lighthearted, maybe even a one-off. But when footage hit the internet, it turned into a spectacle. The crowd around her was electric. Families, young girls, even elderly fans waving fever jerseys like flags of pride. Every swing, every smile, every autograph felt like a moment in sports history being written in real time. And while golf commentators praised her natural form, sports hosts started asking the question that sent shockwaves through both worlds. What if Caitlin Clark actually stayed in golf? That one question, innocent on the surface, carried weight. Because it implied something deeper. It hinted at what every fan had whispered for months. Maybe the WNBA wasn't giving her the space she deserved. Maybe the constant criticism, the jealous fouls. The viral debates weren't just normal competition. Maybe they were symptoms of a system unprepared for a star that big. And the golf clip made that impossible to ignore. You could almost feel the internet's collective smirk when people started saying, "Golf appreciates her more than her own league." Harsh, but the numbers didn't lie. Caitlin's golf posts were outperforming official WNBA content. Sponsors were interacting more with her personal accounts than league pages. Media outlets were pitching features about her crossover appeal rather than her stat lines. The narrative had flipped and the league couldn't stop it. But if you think Caitlin planned it that way, think again. Everything about her has always been authentic. The grind, the poise, the patience. It's not about outshining others, it's about outworking limits. That's what made the golf moment so powerful. It wasn't rebellion, it was revelation. The kind that makes industries rethink their values. The kind that reminds everyone watching that true greatness doesn't need a script or permission. It just needs opportunity. And that's exactly what golf gave her. A chance to be seen without noise, without agendas, without rivals trying to take cheap shots. Just her swing, and a sport that respected the work it takes to be elite. Even legends like Annika Skrunstam praised her presence, saying Caitlin brought fun, passion, and energy to the game. Imagine that one of golf's greatest names publicly celebrating her participation, calling her return an honor. That's more than respect. That's legacy recognizing legacy. Meanwhile, over at WNBA headquarters, the silence continued. Maybe they thought ignoring it would make it fade. Maybe they hoped fans would forget, but they didn't. Because this wasn't a story about basketball or golf anymore. It was a story about the power of colorize, authenticity, about what happens when an athlete stops waiting for validation and starts creating her own. That's why the clip hits so hard. It wasn't just a swing. It was a message to every young athlete watching that your value doesn't depend on approval from a league, coach, or a commissioner. It depends on how far you're willing to go when the world tells you to stay in your lane. And Caitlin Clark didn't just step out of her lane, she built a whole new road. The WNBA might not have realized it yet, but this was a turning point. The moment where fans, sponsors, and even rival sports realized something undeniable. Caitlin Clark isn't just an athlete. Caitlin Clark isn't just an athlete. It started with applause and turned into an earthquake. One viral clip became a movement. And that movement started shaking the very foundation of the WNBA. What began as Caitlin Clark simply enjoying her off-season on a golf course evolved into a story that exposed cracks in an entire league's image. The WNBA didn't just go silent, it froze. It hesitated while the rest of the sports world sprinted to celebrate her. You could almost hear the confusion echo through every boardroom. How did one swing change everything? But that's the Caitlin Clark effect. She doesn't chase attention, attention chases her. And now, every time she picks up a golf club, a basketball, or even a microphone, the world watches. The WNBA, once holding all the power, now found itself watching too from the sidelines of its own narrative. Behind the scenes, sponsors were panicking, but not for the reasons you'd think. This wasn't about damage control. It was about opportunity. The second Caitlin's clip went viral, calls started flooding in. Golf brands that had never touched basketball were suddenly pitching her apparel deals, training partnerships, and digital campaigns. Think about that. A single golf video created more brand interest in 48 hours than months of WNBA promos. Nike analysts tracked the engagement and saw something remarkable. The audience was different. Older demographics, golf fans. And even international markets that rarely interacted with women's basketball were suddenly captivated by one name, Caitlin Clark. That's crossover power. That's the kind of influence leagues dream of, but only a handful of athletes in history have ever achieved. Meanwhile, inside the WNBA offices, the mood had shifted from confidence to concern. The season had ended with decent numbers, decent ratings, and a league-wide sigh of relief. But now, one viral golf swing had reminded everyone just how fragile that success really was. Because the truth was unavoidable. Fans didn't show up for the WNBA as much as they showed up for her. From record ticket sales in Indiana to nationally televised games breaking viewership records. The Caitlin Clark effect was measurable. She had become the league's heartbeat. But what happens when the heartbeat starts beating louder outside the league? That's the fear no one wanted to say out loud. Sports talk shows began dissecting the silence. On ESPN panels, analysts debated why the WNBA didn't immediately celebrate her golf appearance the way the LPGA did. On YouTube and TikTok, creators blasted the league for missing a golden marketing moment. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. The LPGA treated Caitlin like an icon. The WNBA treats her like a problem. That line hit millions of views in a day, and it wasn't just internet drama. It was truth wrapped in frustration. Because fans had watched an entire season of tension, flagrant fouls, and double standards surrounding Caitlin Clark. And now, seeing her embraced elsewhere made people realize how differently she could be treated. The WNBA's biggest flaw wasn't failing to promote Caitlin. It was failing to protect her. For months, she had taken hits both literal and metaphorical. Opponents fouled her harder. Social media called her polarizing. And certain players made subtle jabs about media favorites. Through it all, Caitlin stayed calm, professional, and focused. But this time, her silence spoke volumes. She didn't respond with words. She responded with action by shining somewhere new, and that terrified people who built their narratives around controlling her spotlight. The conversation shifted fast. Sports journalists began asking uncomfortable questions. Why was Caitlin Clark treated with more respect by the golf world than by her own peers? Why was the league that benefited most from her fame so hesitant to celebrate her success elsewhere? The answers weren't simple, but they were revealing. The WNBA structure wasn't built to handle a phenomenon, it was built to balance personalities. But Caitlin Clark isn't a personality. She's a brand, a movement, a once-in-a-generation force that doesn't fit into neat boxes or shared headlines. As her golf clips continued to dominate social media, fans began comparing stats in real time, WNBA posts versus Caitlin's golf videos. The difference was embarrassing. While official league content averaged a few thousand likes, Caitlin's golf highlight crossed millions. Sponsors noticed. So did investors. One insider even leaked that a major sponsor redirected budget plans from WNBA expansion to Caitlin Clark crossover campaign. That's not just a marketing pivot, that's an industry shift. And for the league's commissioner, Cathy Engelbert, that was a nightmare wrapped in a wake-up call. For months, Engelbert had been trying to stabilize the league, improve pay, increase exposure, and maintain unity among players. But unity is fragile when one player becomes bigger than the system. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for that status. She earned it. And yet, instead of celebrating her evolution, the WNBA looked nervous. That nervousness turned into silence. And silence turned into frustration, especially among fans who could see what was happening. Every time the LPGA tweeted about her, people flooded the replies with comments like, "This is how you treat a superstar." Golf respects her more than basketball ever did. Those weren't random fans. Those were WNBA followers, disillusioned by how the league handled its biggest star. But while executives hesitated, Caitlin kept moving. Her training videos surfaced early morning drives, sunset putts, effortless precision. It wasn't about abandoning basketball. It was about expanding herself. She was proving something the world often forgets: greatness isn't confined to one sport. And that idea terrified traditionalists. Because if Caitlin Clark could break into golf this easily, what's stopping her from rewriting how women's sports even operate? Imagine a future where an athlete doesn't need a league structure to dominate headlines. That's the direction Caitlin is heading, and that's exactly why the establishment feels uneasy. Then came the debates. Talk shows erupted with theories. Is Caitlin leaving the WNBA? Should she play both sports? Has golf stolen basketball's biggest star? The truth: she didn't need to leave. She'd already expanded. The moment she teed off, her influence doubled. The WNBA couldn't contain her anymore, and golf didn't want to.